Everyone knows trees are nowhere to be seen in the Sahara Desert. However, many millennia ago, it was once a forest. Ever wonder what happened that resulted in this? But you might also be surprised to find out that this desert had been hiding its other secrets for a long time. Sahara Desert is the largest subtropical desert in the world and the third largest desert overall, beaten by the cold deserts of Antarctica and the northern Arctic. This majestic, sweltering desert covers mind-numbingly 9 million square kilometers. This hot, sprawling desert swallows 11 countries: Algeria, Chad, Niger, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Mauritania, Mali, Sudan, Western Sahara, and Tunisia. The most striking feature of the Sahara Desert, prominently featured in movies, and the sand dune fields that can reach up to the approximation of 600 feet or 183 meters high. In spite of how famous it is, the dunes have accumulated about 15% of the desert, as other not-so-famous 85% topographical features include mountains, plateaus, sand and gravel-covered plains, salt flats, basins, and depressions. So let's answer the first question that popped into the intro about the bewildering transformation of yesterday's beautiful tropical forest to today's gluttoning, arid desert. It's no secret that even when Sahara was tropical, this region forced short spells of aridity and humidity, no small thanks to the slight tilting of Earth's orbital axis, which in turn changes the angle at which solar radiation permeates the atmosphere. During the African humid periods occurred regularly throughout the early history, heavy rains fell down over North Africa due to the incremented pouring of energy from the sun in these times. This resulted in the Sahara becoming more greenery and rivers and lakes. Obviously, that didn't last long. Between 8,000 and 4,500 years ago, the orbital precession caused some areas the rapid transitioning of humid to dry spell that resulted in becoming the Sahara Desert as we know it today. There's an archaeologist who knows what happened in the transformation, and his name is David Wright, who has deducted something of a pattern as he had gone through the archaeological and environmental data. The aforementioned pattern is the presence of the pastoralist in regards to changes in the types and variety of plants. This implies that every time these humans, with their carrying cattle, shift across from one area to another, they would leave a barren land in their wake. This paved the way for Wright's conclusion that due to overgrazing of grasses, the amount of atmospheric moisture is getting reduced. The moisture which produces clouds and enhanced albedo is given off by the plants. So in short, if you want rain, you need clouds, which in turn needs moisture, in turn needs plants. Wright said that the occurrence has more likelihood of abrupt end of humid climate in the region than the aforementioned orbital changes. It's also possible that nomadic tribes at that time also used fire as part of their ancient farming practices to yield the desired farming land as another contributing factor. So, what's even more bewildering than the Sahara being a tropical forest? Well, whales used to live in the area as their habitat long ago. Well, at least their ancestors did. In 1902, a team of geologists guided their camels into a valley nearby the Mountain of Hell in Egypt's western desert, and what awaits them laying in the arid valley is none other than bones of whales. But what's even more astonishing is that some of these skeletons are 50 feet long, with their thickness of their vertebrae as akin to that of a campfire log. These fossils are carbon dated about 37 million years ago, an era when a shallow tropical sea covered this area and all of northern Egypt as well. These prehistoric specimens would give us a glimpse into how whales of yesterday became whales of today. One telltale sign found from a specimen indicates that they had feet. Ever since the scientists discovered that modern whales have vestigial hind leg bones, they had their suspicions about whales being once the terrestrial mammals that had eased into oceans over many millions ago, thus gradually losing all four of their legs. This grand old suspicion became a reality when paleontologists excavated hundreds of whale fossils buried at Wadi Hayton, and much to their surprise, found legs and knees. Despite older specimens have been identified, there are no match for the specimens found in Wadi Hayton for their sheer numbers and the state of preservation. This valley is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Speculations among paleontologists were that landlubber ancestors of whales were deer or pig-like scavengers living near the sea where they eat dead fish along the shore. But that all changed about 55 million years ago when they started spending more time in the water by chasing their prey in shallows and then went deeper for more. This facilitated hunting in water as some of their traits has evolved. As time went by, no longer they have worried about their body mass at sea, and as a trade-off, they got bigger, with their elongated backbone and broadened rib cage. Paleontologists categorize most of the fossils found in the valleys into two types: Basilosaurus and Dorudon. Basilosaurus was the giant with almost eel-like body, whereas Dorudon was much more petite but heavy-muscled sea mammal that shares similarities with the modern whales. Their similarities end with jaws of the Dorudon are revealed with their serrated daggers instead of peg-like teeth. After the discovery of the whale fossils, let's look into the curious case of these supposed utensils and what's so strange about them. Nobody knows their function until today. Even more befuddling is these objects were found in the uninhabitable part of the Sahara Desert in Egypt, named after geographer and desert explorer P.A. Clayton. Clayton rings are conical pottery cylinders open at both ends. They are coupled with one or more punctured pottery discs that are always just slightly larger than rings with a smaller opening, but shouldn't be mistaken as lids as they cannot be fit. Now, what could possibly get stranger than what we've gotten so far? Well, ever heard about the famed tragic story of Atlantis City and its inevitable sunken downfall? It seems we may have found it somewhat connected to a certain Eye of the Sahara, also known as the reshot structure. Eye of the Sahara is the geological formation in the Sahara Desert that has some semblance of the colossal bullseye. This massive formation stretches across 40 kilometers wide region of the desert in Mauritania. A few local nomadic tribes known its formation for centuries. Only during the 60s it was found and photographed by Gemini astronauts who used it as landmark to track the progress of their landing sequences. Landsat satellites took additional images and provided information about the size, height, and extent of the particular formation. Initially, geologists regarded Eye of the Sahara as an impact crater, an object from space that slammed down into the surface of the Earth. This assessment turned out to be false after lengthy studies of rocks in the formation has revealed to be none other than Earth-based. This made them look out for other explanations, and only after which they concluded that Eye of the Sahara is a geological dome. This spiral-shaped formation contains rocks that is aged at least 100 million years old, with some dating back to before creation of life on Earth. This includes igneous volcanic deposits and the formation of sedimentary layers as wind pushes the dust and water particles, sand and mud. Nowadays, geologists can find a variety of igneous rocks in the eye area, including but not limited to kimberlite, carbonatite, black and rhyolites. But of course, this is just one explanation for the existence of the Eye of the Sahara, and a boring one at that. Now there's a second explanation for this ancient formation, and it's way more interesting than the first one. As I've previously mentioned about connection to Atlantis City, there is a certain YouTube video created by a YouTube channel named Bright Insight that explains the location of the mysterious long-lost city that can be found in Mauritania. This could mean that everyone believed this false assumption of the location of Atlantis City must be under the Atlantic Ocean or Mediterranean Sea, and looked into all the wrong places, yet it was hiding in plain sight this whole time. The search for Atlantis began when Plato first described in 350 BC a mysterious island that apparently just vanished. This video claims that the size and shape of the Eye of the Sahara is exactly the same as the Plato measured it, being 23.5 kilometers across and circular. What's jaw-dropping fact is that mountains described by Plato in the north can be seen quite clearly on satellite imagery, with the evidence of ancient rivers which Plato scribed in his book that float around the city. Plato said that Atlantis was destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune and sank beneath the waves. This anecdotal evidence is supported by the scientific record that does show Earth underwent significant climate change around 11,500 years ago when Atlantis is supposed to have disappeared. Who would have thought the Sahara Desert would hold some keys to answer some mysteries, especially about one of evolution's most nagging questions? As the phrase goes, there's always more to this than meets the eye. What do you think about all of this? Please comment down below.